Hi, it's Mark from Top Local Lead Gen. We're here with Bernie Pollock, Pollock Automotive in Vancouver. 16-time winners of Best Auto Repair in Vancouver as voted by their customers. How you doing, Bernie?
I'm doing very well.
So diesels, lots of controversy going on with diesels these days. I guess our question is, should I buy a diesel vehicle? And I guess as an owner of a Volkswagen TDI, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Should someone look at buying a diesel vehicle right now?
Well, I think what you really need to do before you buy a diesel vehicle is look at what you want to use the car for. Before we talk about that, let's just look at some of the advantages of diesel engines. I mean, first of all, fuel economy of a diesel is amazing. For any given size engine, a diesel is, I believe it's somewhere 20 to 30% more efficient than a gasoline engine. Also, these days, diesel fuel's cheaper. It hasn't been that way for a while, but it is now. So diesel fuel, you pay less to fill the tank as well. A few other advantages of diesel. Traditionally, diesel used to be very reliable. I'd say that these days it's not quite as reliable, but it used to be very reliable when gasoline engines needed tune-ups and things. Diesels just needed oil changes and fuel filters and air filters, and away they just kept on going. Also, if you have a truck, towing and hauling capacity of a diesel is far superior to a gasoline engine. It's why trains and ships and large industrial engines all use, and trucks all use diesels, because they're superior for heavy load performance.
So it sounds like the advantages outweigh maybe some of the disadvantages, but what are some of the disadvantages?
Well, disadvantage of diesel, generally you pay more money to buy a diesel engine vehicle. Now, I did a little research before I did this post, and I looked at a couple different lines of cars that sell diesels, and I looked at trucks. Now, it seems like for a truck, you probably pay $8,000 or $10,000 more to buy a diesel model truck. But for a car, like I noticed, I looked at a Mercedes GL models, and it seems like their diesel is actually the cheapest model. So, which kind of surprised me, but I think they have the diesel as the entry level model, and then they start putting the larger engine V8s and fancier options and the AMG packages to boost the price. Volkswagen as well. I mean, you have experience with a Volkswagen TDI. I believe that the diesel option was more money than buying the gasoline version. So not a lot, but a little bit more money. So you've got the upfront cost. The other disadvantage I think with diesels is that they're not as reliable as they used to be. Some are really good, but others have a lot of problems. And when things do go wrong with the diesel, they cost a lot of money to fix. You're not looking at like little, $300 repair bills. A lot of times it's $1,000, $2,000 or more. So the repair bills can be substantial with a diesel. Now, one of the advantages of the diesel, if you buy a diesel vehicle, it's often got a higher resale value. So if you spend $10,000 more on that Ford F-350 truck with the diesel over the gas, chances are a few years down the road when you sell it, you get more money for that vehicle because it's a diesel than a gas motor.
So on balance, maybe the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, but what else? What else also should factor into your choice about whether you buy a diesel or a petrol fuel vehicle?
Excellent question. I think the idea that I come in is usage. Like, what do you want to use the vehicle for? I meet many people who buy diesel vehicles who really probably shouldn't have bought them in the first place. Just an example. I mean, I know you live in Langley. You drive to Vancouver quite often, maybe not every day, but you're kind of the perfect person to own a diesel vehicle because your trips are long, they're lengthy. The engine has time to warm up. You get good fuel economy, and you're moving all the. Generally that trip is a moving all the time trip. And I live like 4 minutes from my work. It would be silly for me to have a diesel. I mean, my gasoline engine barely gets warm driving from Burkeville to Marpole. So it would be kind of silly for me to have a diesel because I'd have to end up, to actually take good care of that engine. I'd have to actually leave it sitting and idling for another 10 or 15 minutes just to get the engine warmed up. So it really depends on how you use the vehicle. Also with trucks, I mean, I meet many people. They're mostly men. I have to say, I think there's a guy thing about owning diesels. I mean, I attracted to that sort of noise and sound and largeness of the truck. It's a manly thing. But I meet a lot of guys who buy these trucks. I'll say Fords in particular have had a lot of problems. After some repair bills of $1,000 or $2,000. They just get so pissed off at the truck they end up selling it, and a lot of them end up buying like a gasoline-powered F-150 truck, which is much more practical. It's much more useful for every day. A lot less goes wrong. But the diesel's great if you need to haul heavy loads. It's worth the extra money. If you're hauling a boat, a trailer, or you have a business where you're hauling heavy loads, diesel's great. So you need to really look at what you're buying. And unless you just like spending tons of money on car repairs and your vehicle's broke, but most people don't like to do that. Also, around, we did a blog post about a month or two ago about a Mercedes that we had where the owner hadn't changed the oil quite frequently. But again, this is another example of perhaps not the right owner for a vehicle. A lot of the trips this person did was short trips. Only had 50,000 kilometers on a 6-year-old diesel-powered vehicle. So that's really very little usage. I didn't quiz him entirely, but I have a feeling his trips were probably extremely short, so the engine never had time to warm up. In addition to that, maybe not changing the oil when he should have, end up killing the engine early. So had this person owned a gasoline-powered engine, probably would have been no problem. Although, again, if they didn't change the oil, it would have been an issue. But I think gasoline engines are a little more forgiving.
So I have another question. Do car salespeople ever address people's usage of a vehicle before they recommend the car?
I have a feeling not. I mean, they probably don't think about these factors. And I think if you're out there selling a vehicle, it's like, oh yeah, great, I can sell a diesel because it's $10,000 more, and I'm sure it's more money in their pocket to sell it. Same with the Mercedes or the TDI, Volkswagen. It's just they're just selling it. Oh yeah, it's got great gas mileage. Buy this car, and people are interested, but they don't really ever. I would say that maybe a good salesman might ask, but for the most part, they would probably just be happy to sell them whatever they want to buy.
Well, our experience was we were test driving, looking at potentially buying an SUV, and we test drove, 6, 7 different brands. Not one salesman asked us about our use case. That was not a part of the conversation ever, and that's multiple times, multiple test drives, multiple salesmen at different dealerships. So that's not even in the equation. They just want to, sell you what you came in to look at.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's interesting because this is a bit off the subject of diesels, but hybrids as well. I have a client who bought a Toyota Prius a while ago, and they drive it very little. It's like an '08 Prius. It's probably got 60,000 kilometers. It's got very little use. He's very happy with the vehicle, and not a lot's gone wrong with it. But when I think of the extra money that person paid for the Prius over what you could have bought a Camry or something nicer for the same money, and it's I don't know. To me, like it's a Prius is kind of wasted on a person who's just driving a small amount. Whereas I met a guy yesterday with a Highlander hybrid, 3 years old, 180,000 kilometers. He drives 60,000 Ks a year. Now, that's the right kind of person for a hybrid because they're using it all the time. It's getting a lot of usage, and they're going to save the money on the fuel that the extra cost of the vehicle implies. But a lot of people buy, like hybrids, they buy them for ideological reasons. I guess a lot of people bought Volkswagen TDIs for ideological reasons too, that they're good on gas and they're good for the environment, and they found out that at least one of those parts of the equation wasn't quite right.
Yeah, well, that was our choice. As I used to brag about the kind of mileage that we get, and it's amazing. It's not as fun an experience knowing that we're polluting the crap out of the environment right now. VW is trying to make it better. They sent us these, which are about $1,000 worth of credit cards to spend on $500 we got to spend at the dealer. I don't know what the heck I'm going to use that for. $500 I can spend wherever I want, and that's the start. Honestly, it's going to cost them billions of dollars to fix their polluting diesels. And that is a consideration. I think that for all that performance, you still get some issues. So what about biodiesel? Why wouldn't I just be able to switch my car to biodiesel and fix the issue?
Yeah, well, I think I'm not an expert on biodiesel, but what I do know is, because we talked about this in the past, is biodiesel doesn't really reduce your NOx emissions. That's just a factor of the temperature of the combustion. but it doesn't really reduce your NOx emissions, but it certainly does reduce CO and I mean, hydrocarbon emissions are much lower. So, and biodiesel, I mean, it's just a more pleasant experience. We have customers who do run their diesels on biodiesel, and just even the smell of the exhaust is much nicer than a petroleum diesel, especially if you get the, I haven't seen one in a while, but the odd person who burns like vegetable oil. I mean, it's actually quite nice. It's like the smell of the exhaust is quite pleasant. Whereas, you know, especially in an older diesel, you know, where you can actually, like newer diesels could have so many particulate filters. You don't smell the smell so much, but it's quite, it's good from that point of view. You know, the odor is less. Biodiesel, there's a little more maintenance. I mean, it can clog up your fuel filters a little more, so you got to change them a little more often. But I mean, I think biodiesel is definitely a good way to go if you care about the environment.
Yeah, from what I've read, well, I've run it in my previous generation vehicle, and it was about 10 or 20% more power because there's a higher cetane rating in biodiesel. So you actually get more power per liter or whatever. And yeah. And it is definitely, the car just feels a little, it likes it. It feels, it breathes a little easier, it runs a little easier. I don't know, it might be all just in your head, but other people commented on it as well. It wasn't just me, so.
Yeah, no, I've heard that with biodiesel as well. It's a little smoother and the engine runs a bit quieter.
Yeah. So if you're looking for diesel expertise, these are the guys to see. They know all the ins and outs of many different types of diesels, trucks, cars, you name it. PollockAutomotive.com. Tons of information on there, including total frame-off rebuilds of Ford diesels. Or give Bernie a call for your next service, 604-327-7112. Pollock Automotive, they're the guys. Thanks, Bernie.
Thank you, Mark.